Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Jermaine Dambi, and today we're going to be exploring the world of psychometric properties of measures that researchers use in their work. Sometimes it can be challenging when trying to choose the right measure for a particular construct. If you do a search of all the screening tools for depression, how do you know which one is the best for your study? A public mental health professional doesn't just assume that their measures work. Rather, they collect data to actually show and demonstrate that the measure works. When choosing the measure for a construct, there are a number of steps that they may go through. First, they would define the construct. Second, they would conduct a literature review. Third, they would evaluate the psychometric properties of the measure that they identified. Fourth, they would definitely have to consider the target population and practical implications. And finally, they may seek expert opinions. In this video, we are really going to focus on step number 3, evaluating the psychometric properties of a measure. Psychometric properties refer to the characteristics of a measure, such as its reliability and validity. Before you include a measure in a study, you want to make sure it has good psychometric properties. Validity refers to the extent to which a measure captures what is intended to measure. There are different types of validity, such as face validity, content validity, criterion-related validity, and construct validity. Each of these addresses specific aspects of the measure's validity. Reliability refers to the consistency and stability of a measure. There are 3 types of reliability. This includes consistency of a measure over time, otherwise known as test-retest reliability. Consistency across items known as internal consistency, and consistency across different researchers defined as the inter-rater reliability. We'll now explore each of these in detail. Face validity refers to the superficial or apparent credibility or validity of a measure. There is a subjective judgment that is made by individuals, so this could be researchers or potential participants, and is based on their intuitive understanding or common sense rather than determined by any kind of scientific analysis. Given face validity is so subjective, it is often considered the weakest form of validity. An example of face validity can be seen in a self-esteem questionnaire. If a questionnaire is designed to measure an individual's self-esteem, it would have face validity if the questions appear to be directly related to the concept of self-esteem. For instance, questions that inquire about feelings of self-worth, self-confidence, or overall satisfaction with oneself could be considered to have face validity for measuring self-esteem. On the other hand, if you had questions unrelated to self-esteem, such as questions about physical fitness or favorite hobbies, this wouldn't have good face validity. So given the subjective nature of establishing face validity, it can be a useful starting point, but it does not guarantee the actual validity or accuracy of the measure. Content validity refers to the extent to which a measure adequately covers the specific construct it is intended to measure. To establish content validity, researchers typically engage in a rigorous process that involves developing a pool of potential items or questions, reviewing them by experts in the field, and then ensuring that the final instrument includes items that are representative of all aspects of the construct. For example, to develop a questionnaire to measure self-esteem with good content validity, researchers would start by creating a pool of items or statements that capture all the various aspects of self-esteem. This could include statements like, "I feel confident in my abilities," "I believe that I'm a valuable person," Once the initial pool of items are generated, the items are reviewed by experts to ensure that they adequately represent the different facets of self-esteem. The experts would consider factors such as clarity, relevance, and comprehensiveness of items. Feedback from these experts would then help refine the questionnaire, removing or modifying items that are deemed irrelevant or redundant, ensuring that the final instrument covers the full range of self-esteem. Criterion validity assesses the extent to which a new measure correlates with a relevant external criterion. The criterion can be another well-established measure, an observed behavior, or an outcome that the measure is expected to predict. There are two commonly recognized types of criterion validity: concurrent validity and predictive validity. Concurrent validity determines how well a new measure aligns with the criterion that is assessed at the same time. In other words, it measures the degree to which scores on the new measure correspond to scores on the established measure of the same construct. An established measure is sometimes called a gold standard. A gold standard is a diagnostic assessment that we consider to be a benchmark and best way to measure the presence of a mental health condition. In mental health, a gold standard is usually a clinical assessment using the DSM or the ICD. Predictive validity, on the other hand, as the name suggests, assesses how well a measure predicts a future criterion or outcome. It is used to determine if a measure can accurately focus or estimate future behavior or performance. For example, let's say a university admissions office wants to evaluate the predicted validity of a newly developed aptitude test for assessing students' academic success in their first year. They administer the aptitude test to a group of incoming students and then track their performance at the end of their first year, typically measured by their GPA or their grade point average. By analyzing the correlation between the aptitude test and the GPAs, the admission office can determine if the test accurately predicts academic success. Finally, construct validity refers to the degree to which a measure accurately measures the underlying theoretical construct or concept it intends to measure. It assesses whether the measure is capturing the intended construct and not anything else. We use various methods to establish construct validity by comparing results to existing measures or examining relationships with other variables. There are two commonly recognized types of construct validity: convergent validity and discriminant validity. First, convergent validity refers to the extent to which different measures of the same constructs are strongly related to each other. Consider a study where researchers are assessing two established measures of depression, such as the Beck Depression Inventory, the BDI, and Patient Health Questionnaire, PHQ-9. They want to establish convergent validity by examining the relationship between the two measures. If they show a strong positive correlationship, it supports the convergent validity of both measures. Conversely, discriminant validity refers to the extent measures of different constructs are truly measuring different concepts rather than overlapping or measuring the same construct. Essentially, it helps to determine whether two measures are different enough to be considered separate and distinct. To demonstrate discriminant validity, let's use the example of self-esteem. Both self-esteem and self-confidence are related to one's perception of oneself, but they do represent distinct constructs. To measure self-esteem, a researcher may use a well-established questionnaire such as the Rosenberg self-esteem scale. The researcher may then use a separate questionnaire that focuses on the individual's belief in their abilities to successfully perform specific tasks or activities. After administering both questionnaires to a group of participants, the researcher may then analyze the data using statistical techniques to assess the distinctiveness between the two constructs. If the results of the analysis support discriminant validity, it suggests that each measure is indeed assessing a separate construct. Let's take a look at reliability. Reliability refers to the consistency of a measure. We consider three types of consistency, namely test-retest reliability, internal consistency, and inter-rater reliability. Let's go through this one by one. Test-retest reliability is a measure of the consistency or stability over time for a particular measure. It assesses the degree to which the same tests, when administered to the same individuals on two different occasions, produces similar results. For example, suppose a group of individuals is given a questionnaire that measures their alcohol consumption habits. The questionnaire includes questions about the frequency and quantity of alcohol consumed. It's administered to the same group of individuals at two time points, let's say 3 days apart. After collecting the data, we compare the responses to evaluate the test-retest reliability of the questionnaire by calculating the correlation between the first and second administration. A high correlation would indicate strong test-retest reliability. Internal reliability refers to the consistency of responses across the items in a measure. One way to assess internal consistency is using a statistic called Cronbach's alpha. The Cronbach's alpha essentially just measures the average correlationship between the items and the total score on the scale. It ranges from 0 to 1, with higher values indicating greater internal consistency. As a rule of thumb, an alpha that is less than 0.7 is usually not considered an adequate internal consistency. Let's give an example of the back and side inventory. It consists of 21 self-report items that look at various symptoms of anxiety. So, we would just administer the BAI to a sample of individuals and analyze the responses with the Cronbach's alpha. Let's say our Cronbach's alpha is 0.85. This high internal consistency suggests that this measure is a reliable measure of anxiety. Finally, inter-rater reliability refers to the consistency or agreement among different raters or observers when assessing or evaluating the same construct with the same measure. Measuring inter-rater reliability involves statistical techniques that quantify the level of agreement between the different raters. Examples of statistics used include Cohen's-Kappa coefficient or the inter-class correlation coefficient. Values range from 0 to 1, with higher values representing greater reliability. In conclusion, before using a measure, you need to ensure that it's valid and reliable for your study population. I hope you found this video useful in introducing you to psychometric properties of measures used in public mental health. Thank you.